5 things to consider when choosing reading materials for your child. I'm Dr. Emily Sherwood. For information about literacy, please like and subscribe. So if you're following my videos, you know that a lot of times I do like a lot of research things. I talk about the research and I talk about what science says about reading, and I also talk about some of my experiences, but a lot of it's very scholarly. So today I'm kind of taking a break from that, and this is part of what I call my Coffee and Conversation series. Kind of just to talk about some of my experiences and just some tools and some things that parents might want to know when working with their children. And so today I'm going to talk about 5 things that you need to consider when you choose reading materials for your children. And again, this is not really academic today. It's not very heavy. These are just things that I've observed in my practice, and also so this time of year, a lot of parents are looking for materials for their children. But it's now July 1st, and homeschool parents are parents who may be are teachers. You might be looking for curriculum. You also might be still doing summer reading. I know some of the schools on the West Coast and up north of the United States just got out for summer. And so you might be doing summer reading just now. Schools here in the South have been out for over a month. You might be looking for books that are fun for them. Now, I just did a book fair on Saturday for my book, which I'm going to link this video to for middle grade readers. And so I'm going to share the top 5 things that I think are important when you consider reading material for your child. So that's like books and articles and sometimes you do like magazine subscriptions for children. So what are some things that you need to look at when you're choosing these kind of fun reading things that will help your child to enjoy reading and get better at reading? So the first one is age appropriateness. Now when I say this, what immediately comes to my mind after living in the South for years and in the Bible Belt for years is this idea that children shouldn't read about certain topics, particularly romantic topics, until they're older and can handle that. And now there's, some talk about political topics and so forth, but really age appropriateness is more than that. Age appropriateness means that the child is able to read the book, enjoy the book, and understand the book. It is at a level that is something that the child will enjoy. And it may not be that there's, sex or violence or anything like that in it, curse words. It may just be that this book talks about grown-ups, they're grown-up characters, and that's not something that the child wants. So, story with this, true story, is the story of Chrissy. And Chrissy is a teacher, but she's also a first grade mom. And Chrissy's daughter came home crying one day because she had picked up a book in the library, and it was a book of folk tales. So the librarian thought, oh, this is good for little kids. This is fun. These are just traditional stories. And she read about Jack and the Beanstalk. And so the story talked about how the giant would eat people. And the daughter she was traumatized by that because she was very young. And she didn't want to think that monsters were eating people. So that's an example of age inappropriateness. The child's able to read the book. The book doesn't necessarily have things that we would think are graphic per se, but it just wasn't appropriate for the child. When I was teaching, many times students would go to the book fairs, and there would be a big chapter book with something about romance or summer, and kids thought that was really fun. I had a first grader once pull a book about a romance, and it had a really fun cover, and that's why she picked it. The book was way too hard for her. It wasn't level appropriate, but it also wasn't maturity appropriate. And you run into a lot of these issues also if you have children who are reading way above grade level, because many times children can read the books, but they don't like the books. The books are not books that at their stage in life are good for them. And so when you're looking at age appropriateness, this is a very important thing, not just to keep children safe, which I think is what people think about a lot. They think about you have to keep children safe from things like violence or sex at a young age, but also to help the child enjoy the text, because if your child doesn't like it, then that won't help your child become a better reader, which is really what you're going for. The second is the reading level. Now, I've talked about this before. If your child is in public school, the school is able to provide you a reading level, and its own. You probably are going to get a score report. If your child just got out of school, it's probably in that big packet of things. There will be something that's called a universal screener. It's probably something like Star or Ames Web or iReady. There will be something either in electronic form or in paper form that will tell you your child's rough reading level. And if you don't have that, somebody should still be at the school, or your child may be able to log in. If you've got a child who's upper elementary school or above who's good with a computer, the child may be able to log in and find that information. And again, you want a reading level, you want it to be around your child's reading level. But if it's something that your child likes, based on interest, it may go a little bit higher than that. And you want it to go a little higher. You want it to be just above your child's reading level for challenge. But at the same time, if your child wants to read a book that's slightly below the level and it's summer and it's just for fun, go for that. It won't hurt your child. Your child will still gain vocabulary, will still gain reading skills. And if it's not at your child's reading level, I know a lot of parents whose children struggle to read, but because the child is of a certain age, the parent thinks the child needs to read those books. For example, I know a dad, will call him Peter, and Peter's son was diagnosed with dyslexia, had a really hard time reading. But Peter's son was in 6th grade, and because of that, Peter felt like he had to read hard books and hard articles. So Peter tried to read the National Geographic with his son. Incredibly high reading level. But Peter thought that he was doing a good job by challenging him. No. You're making the kid hate reading, and you're reinforcing this idea that he's not a good reader. It needs to be about on the child's level. Again, you can go a little bit low, a little bit higher, but the child needs to be confident reading it. Third thing is the child's interest. So if a child likes something, they're more likely to read about it and enjoy it. I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but again, it's something that's not always practiced in schools and in some families today. There's this idea that you have to read certain types of books. You have to read the classics, or you have to read a certain type of book that the school recommends, or that somebody in the community recommends, sometimes the church recommends. But if a child likes to read and likes the subject, that will go much better than reading something the child doesn't like. So when I was in graduate school, I heard a story once, and I couldn't find the study. I looked for it. But there was a study of middle and high school students in a rural area, and it was from, I think, the 1990s, where, again, this was a story I heard. I couldn't locate the study. It was too old for me to do without being behind a paywall. But these students got to choose what they wanted to read. And it was a very rural area, kind of poor rural area, and a lot of the students chose subscriptions to hunting and fishing magazines, which is not something that you would really think about getting. I wouldn't think about giving kids to read just right off. I wouldn't think that would be something that students really like. But they went crazy over it. And the test scores for these students would way up after they read those magazines because they were really, really engaged in it. So think about your child's hobbies, the movies your child likes. Even take the child with you and have interests. Have the child say what they're interested in. Have your child give you 3 or 4 interests outside of school that they want to read about, and that way the child will read and enjoy reading, and is much more likely to finish that book or that article. So number 4 is something that I don't feel like we talk about a lot, and that is background knowledge. Background knowledge is so important, especially if your child is struggling to read or is learning to read. Your child needs something that can latch onto something your child already knows. So in the media, you hear a lot lately about culturally relevant pedagogy sometimes. I mean, there's this idea that it's a bad thing. And the whole idea of that is not a political one. It's that children need to latch on to things they already know. So if you are a child learning anything really, if you can connect it to something that you already know from your culture, then it's learned much better than if it's just something random. And in fact, the brain has to latch on to something to understand the concept. So background knowledge is really, really huge with reading. Now, your child may have an interest in something that they don't know much about, and that's okay too. It doesn't mean that you have to tell your child, oh, you can only choose books about something you know something about, because that probably won't work. But if the child does have background knowledge, that's a huge plus. And one thing that's really helpful in building background knowledge, especially among struggling readers, especially among readers who are a little bit older, like third grade, are books in a series. Because if it's in a series, once the student has read the first book successfully, that knowledge will transfer to the next book. So the student already knows the characters, already knows kind of what's going to happen in the book. Some of these series that are really popular, like Captain Underpants, Ricky Ricotta, they all kind of have the same plot over and over. Something happens, there's something that happens at the school, and the principal's involved, and they have to save the day. There's little changes from book to book. There are changes in those things, but the elements are all still there. So it's highly recommended if you've got children, especially who are struggling to read, to think about helping your child to find a series that they like. And there are lots of series out there. There are all kinds of things, any genre, mystery, romantic, graphic novels, which are, the ones with the pains, like Ricky Ricotta and Captain Underpants. They got the pictures. Kids love those. And those are in a series. Magic Tree House is a series. I don't know how many books they have. They have a ton. So that is a suggestion to help build background knowledge if your child is struggling to read. Again, you don't have to do that. If your child doesn't like fiction, just don't do that. Do a nonfiction book. And there are nonfiction series as well that you might want to look at. But that is one way to build background knowledge. The fifth way is child choice. So if you're a parent or have worked around kids a lot, you'll find that parents don't always get it perfectly right when choosing things for children. They may have ideas about what they want their child to like, or what they think their child likes based on what that parent was like when they were young. And that's not always what the child wants. And sometimes it surprises parents what the child wants, because it may be something that the parent hasn't thought was really interested in the child, and it may be something that happened at the school or something that the child saw on TV. So giving your child choice is incredibly powerful, because again, the child is much more likely to read and enjoy the book than to finish the book. Now, if you are a homeschool parent or you're doing some kind of structured curriculum in the summer, I know some schools you can choose your summer reading, but it's based on a number of books. You can still give choice within that. We call that managed choice. And that means that you tell the child, okay, we're going to read about this. Or, this topic we're going to study in the fall. Can you help me to choose a book that you like, that you want to read about? And students really like that. And again, they're much more likely to follow it. So where do you find these books? So I am going to put in the link, my video on AR Book Find, which is a free program for anyone. And you can actually use it to find books own level and an interest level. So again, when we talk about age appropriateness, if you have a child who's reading maybe a little bit higher, but still is at a maturity level that's a little bit lower. Say your child is in second grade and reads at a fifth grade level, but isn't really ready to read about fifth grade characters. You can actually find their interest, that you can actually filter the results for interest levels. It's a very powerful tool. And so I'm going to put that in the links in the description box. So if you are a parent, you can use that to help you. So I want to know what you want to read this summer and what you want your kids to read this summer. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please put your thoughts in the comments, and I would love to respond to you. And also, if you have any comments about this channel, this is still a relatively new channel, and I want to see what you need as parents. I know some teachers may be out there watching this. What do you need to help the children in your life? What would be most helpful to you? Because I am thinking of new ways to make content, and I want to make content that's really relevant. So until next time, keep learning, and thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.